Okay people, so for starters, Boruto fans are about to go through the roof with excitement because the Boruto anime just got a major update via one of the animators that are working on the Two Blue Vortex anime Return, where he answered a burning question that most fans have had regarding the Boruto anime and what it's going to be like upon its return. He had answers and we're gonna definitely talk about it. Then Bleach fans, the creator Tite Kubo hinted at something potentially major to happen in the future regarding the Bleach series and a potential spin-off that fans might think of as, at the very least, exciting. I mean, you can't really go wrong with more Bleach considering it's been batting a 10 out of 10 as of late. And speaking of 10 out of 10s, My Hero Academia fans, a new trailer was dropped for the latest and final season of the My Hero Academia anime, and everyone on social media is going crazy with how epic it looks. So we're definitely gonna dive into all that and much more in this episode of Fornever the only news source that provides anything and everything anime and manga related, and we don't bore you. We get into it. Let's do it. And of course, before we continue, hit that subscribe button and that bell. I'd greatly appreciate it. You'd get updated on the world of anime and manga, and I'll be able to inform you on it, so we all win. And to start things off, Boruto fans. Now, it's been a long time coming regarding the Boruto anime's return. For starters, fans were uncertain, despite the fact that when the Boruto anime went off air, they pretty much were all aboard of saying that, yo dog, don't worry, Boruto anime will be returning, just give it some time. It was very much so obvious that the Boruto anime had caught up with the manga, and opposed to doing a whole bunch of filler, essentially being stuck in a cycle of like the same old, they decided to put the Boruto anime to the side, let the chapters build up, let the intensity and excitement from the fandom kind of rise, and then eventually they would commence. But of course, a lot of fans, including myself, kind of felt a little bit like, yo, it's been a while, what's going on? And then as of recent, fans once again, while they asked about the Boruto anime, were informed, well back in December actually, but throughout the months regarding the Boruto anime of, yo dog, it's returning. Studio Pierrot updated their official website to let people know Boruto anime is indeed coming back. And it seems as though at the very least there might be more going on in the background than most people realize regarding the Boruto anime, because an animator came out and spoke on what's going on with the Boruto anime and a big burning question that people have had regarding the Boruto anime, because one of the biggest things that a lot of people had a complaint about with Boruto's anime was the fact that it had a lot of anime original content, regardless if it was somewhat hinted at in different books or whatnot. Ultimately, most fans, they just want straight up manga content. They just want it straight up from the manga to the anime. They don't want no ifs, ands, and buts. And the Boruto anime, it ran for like, you know, a long time. It's a really long anime, and a lot of the content in it just isn't only manga content only. There's a lot of stuff from the novels, there's a lot of anime original stuff with different teams, there's a whole lot of different things. And well, fans were wondering, okay, Boruto returns, there's so much greatness going on from pretty much where it left off to where we're at right now with the manga, from the end of OG Boruto manga to the Two Blue Vortex. Like, are you guys going to go the same route and be stuck in the cycle of filler? Like, are we gonna just keep on doing the same old filler canon? Where are we going with this? Which is a very much so valid question, because again, the Boruto anime, if they would have waited and instead of doing that kind of just focused on other aspects and came back to Boruto, kind of like what they're doing right now, how they're focusing in on Bleach and letting Boruto build up, Boruto's kind of whole idea, concept, and perception out there would have been totally different. I mean, thankfully now things have drastically shifted to the point where fans are looking at Boruto like, yo, this series is him, this series is awesome, the success is there, all the numbers are there for the people that are looking at the popularity, the perception of like it's actually very well written and there's really not much to complain about is there. Like, there's a lot really much so going for Boruto at this moment. But again, a lot of fans were worried, is the filler monster coming? Like, what's happening here? And according to an animator that is seemingly working on the Boruto Two Blue Vortex anime, he came out and said this: Boruto Two Blue Vortex, it's so serious that there doesn't seem to be any room for original anime content. And this tweet right here is making its rounds. When I caught it, it was already at like 100k views, and it's probably increased since then by a lot, because a lot of people were very much so worried about that. And if an animator is coming out and saying that, there's a little bit to unpack there. For starters, obviously he's an animator, he doesn't, you know, have the final say so on things regarding the anime, but he does have more of an informed opinion on the innards of things than probably most would. So that's for starters. But in general, for him to say say that, again, that is also very valid. If you've been reading the Boruto manga from where it left off to where we're at right now, it is very much so intense, a whole lot going on, and unless they went the old route of what Shippuden did, what, you know, even OG Naruto did, and of course what the original Boruto anime did, and kind of just started sliding in filler in the middle of things happening, then, well, we'll be a lot better off, because those events and the way they used to do things would break the intensity. It would break just in general what was going on, people being excited about things, where honestly, even though I do miss having a brand new episode each and every week of some of my favorite series, there are some series that do very much so benefit from having that seasonal treatment of every year or every 2 years or however long it takes to get a batch of 12 to 24 episodes. They take their time and you get absolute greatness. It is one of the things that has helped to propel series like Demon Slayer to the top, Jujutsu Kaisen to the top. Like a lot of these franchises that, you know, they get all this critical acclaim and they've done very, very well. A lot of it is in part due to the fact that you get these beautifully animated, very well paced, very much so no filler or very little filler at all anime adaptations that have helped these things to propel to where they're at. And so if what this animator potentially is hinting at regarding the fact that it's so serious that there doesn't seem to be any room for original anime content, then I'd imagine the only places where we're going to be getting any sort of filler, quote unquote, which at the end of the day I still stand that as long as Ikamoto and Kishimoto give the okay on these original things and hopefully are involved in these original things happening in the anime, then I won't be too mad at it. But essentially the flashbacks will be mainly and primarily where they can incorporate kind of original stories or stuff that, you know, again, the creators possibly might have had an idea of or something that they thought would be a good story. And that would essentially be the time period in between Boruto Part 1 and where Two Blue Vortex picks up events. Essentially those 3 years, there's endless possibilities of stories of Boruto and Sasuke together. Boruto after Sasuke, where he finally meets up with Koji. And there's moments in the manga where they actually go into flashback territory. So I gotta imagine that those points where Boruto thinks back to events that happened is where they're going to try to incorporate, whether if it's they're going to do original content or however they're going to slice this, because we still don't know, regardless if, okay, it's clearly not going to be packed with any sort of filler. Based on what this animator is saying and based on the way the manga is written, there's no way that it would make sense to do hundreds of episodes of filler where it's just like, bro, we're not in that era anymore. Fans don't want that. But there are moments where, again, Boruto starts recollecting events from the past or things that happened in that time skip do get brought up, where if there's like an episode or two or maybe a few episodes that they decide that they really want to expound upon with events, they can definitely do so. If the anime is going to come back and be an ongoing long runner, then that will probably also be where they decide to put out like, hey, here's 12 or 24 episodes of original content. But ideally, the best course of action would be to use those time periods where they think back to the past, and if they're going to do like 2 or 3 extra episodes potentially, and I feel like even 2 or 3 filler episodes would be a lot, but if they're going to do any sort of original stuff, those will be the time periods wherever Boruto thinks back to the past or where events between him and Kashi and Koji get brought up of when he was training or him and Sasuke. All of those aspects is where there would be moments to do original stuff, other than like extra, you know, dialogue or extra pieces of information that I'm sure they're going to incorporate for time purposes in between episodes. But aside from that, it seems to be the case that not only from what this animator is saying, it just feels like for the most part the right thing to do and the best way to go about it with the Boruto anime is to really not incorporate filler. And again, this guy, he probably knows a thing or two, so we will see. But regardless of what, this is very good news and a very good sign for the Boruto anime if an animator from the show is saying, yo dog, anime original content doesn't seem to be the route. And for reference, this animator that is speaking out has indeed worked on Naruto, Boruto, Bleach, many other series, so he's legit. But let me know what you guys think about this whole thing. Do you think that this is the best course of action? Do you think that what this guy is saying is the best way to go with it? And if they do add filler content outside of the kind of notions that I brought forth in the time periods, is there any other place where filler or original stuff would be deemed necessary or deemed, you know, okay to put in? And how much of it would be acceptable to you? Like an episode or two? Are you fine with them doing a 12 or 24 episode arc in between events where, you know, Boruto's thinking back? Or you just want 24 episodes, and if they're gonna do like an episode or two or a few extra scenes here or there, that's fine. Like, where do you stand with filler as far as the Boruto 2 Blue Vortex anime return goes? Because it seems like with this animator, he don't want none of that stuff stuff is too serious and it's too real right now, you feel me? And while we're on the topic of Naruto in particular, we recently got an update regarding the Naruto live action film. Now, it was recently announced that we will be getting a live action film for Naruto, and a lot of people, of course, has had their skepticisms in one form or another, rightfully so. At the end of the day, we know what has happened historically regarding live action adaptations from anime or manga source material, whatnot. But there was a glimmer of hope when we found out that one of the people that were going to be in charge, I believe they were going to be a co-writer as well as co-producer of this film, Destin Cretton, was also going to be somebody that was in charge of directing the upcoming Spider-Man Brand New Day film. So while, yeah, at the end of the day, we've seen quite a few times of what could go regarding live action adaptations of, you know, anime or manga or whatnot, at the very least, this guy being at the center of things gave people like, okay, we know that Spider-Man, you know, is usually very good, the live actions, and there's very high expectations for this upcoming Spider-Man film. So a lot of people were kind of like, well, if this guy is at the helm of things, this could be a good thing or whatnot. But also at the same time, hey, if he is working on Spider-Man, what's going to happen with Naruto? Because we haven't had an update in quite some time, and recently reports came in that the live action Naruto movie is reportedly still in development. However, production won't move forward until Destin Cretton finishes his work in the MCU. So depending on what happens with Spider-Man Brand New Day, essentially we could either be waiting quite some time for this Naruto film, or if, let's just say, this is the only film that he directs of the Spider-Man stuff and he kind of just puts things aside and goes back to, you know, focusing in on this Naruto thing, then we could get it within the next few years. But essentially it's gonna be some time before we get the Naruto live action film, which at the end of the day, considering everything we've seen with live action adaptations, yes, take your time, make sure that you have the right amount of focus, because at the end of the day, we don't want anything to go wrong with this. We've seen what historically has happened with live action adaptations. I don't need to quote Dragon Ball Evolution, but ultimately we want a proper adaptation. So yes, take your time, make sure you get it right, and at the same time, hopefully we get Masashi Kishimoto involved once the time does come to work hand in hand with this guy, so that way we could truly get a proper adaptation and the best possible product for the Naruto live action film. But yeah, development will be happening. It's just right now the guy is focused in on the MCU with the Spider-Man stuff. But if he knocks Spider-Man out the park and Spider-Man turns out to be a really good film, then that means that maybe some of our worries that we initially had will be dissipated and ultimately will be in very good hands. But time will tell. Regardless of what, yeah, Naruto live action movie is still gonna happen, just gonna take a little bit. Moving forward, Bleach fans, we got some really exciting news regarding the Bleach series and regarding potential Bleach news stories and potentially a spin-off based on some wording. Because in case you don't know, if you don't follow here, hit that subscribe button and that bell, I'd greatly appreciate it. We spoke about in the past, Tite Kubo, the original creator of Bleach, kind of has this club outside place where essentially if you're a member, you get to find out things in advance of what's going to come regarding the story, or just in general. It could be anything from Kubo's taste in fashion, or whatever the case may be. There's a ton of different things that you find out in this club outside, but again, it's exclusive to members of the club outside. But occasionally we do hear inklings and rumblings of what's happening in there, and we found out that Kubo answered a very big and interesting question, and it gives way more hope for more Bleach to come. Because let's be honest here, with the final saga of the Bleach Thousand Year Blood War approaching, we got Core 4. This is the end. It's going to adapt the remaining content of the manga. Of course, there's still the novels, but aside from the novels, there's really not much else other than, of course, the one chapter that we got, the one shot, the No Breaths from Hell. Like, we have that, but there's not, you know, ongoing Bleach content. So when all of that gets done, then what? And a lot of fans have probably been hoping for more Bleach to come down the road, and well, Kubo at the very least gave some hope with what he recently showcased and what he recently said on his club outside. Bleach creator teases new spin-off with Ichigo in London. There's an official website called Club Outside for fans where they can register and ask questions about the series. The website launched in 2021, and since then Kubo has answered almost 800 questions. Yo, shout outs to Kubo, really putting in that work. Just major props. That's a lot of questions. The recent Q&A was revealed June 9th, 2025, where Kubo's response to one question sparked hopes in fans for a much awaited spin-off. The question was, if adult Ichigo goes to London for work, could there be an unexpected transformation into a Shinigami or a conflict with Wingbind? Now, in case you don't understand what that is referring to, Tite Kubo, creator of Bleach, has a spin-off series, you may have heard of it, called Burn the Witch, with some different characters, but ultimately it's still in the same verse, the same universe, so to speak, as the Bleach story. And ultimately they're saying, yo, if Ichigo ever went over there, because their location is not in the Serite, like, you know, Serite is basically based on Japan. Their branch is essentially more so based on like London, the UK type of deal or whatnot. You understand what I'm saying, Mike? So essentially fans are like, yo, if it ever came to it, would there be some sort of, you know, Shinigami transformations or crossovers? And Kubo basically rocked everybody's socks with saying something that again gives massive hopes for potential more Bleach in the future, because he said, I'm keeping that a secret as I might tell that story someday. And before we continue on, I just want to add in here that at the end of the day, if that story was told, I'd got to imagine that he would probably do it from the angle of within the Burn the Witch story, Ichigo crossing over, because honestly, business wise, I guess it would make sense to kind of put more eyes on Burn the Witch. And also at the end of the day, because that is a spin-off and it wasn't ever really like, we never seen the Burn the Witch characters in the Bleach manga as it was being serialized. Obviously that was an idea that he whether created later or revealed later or whatnot. So ultimately I gotta imagine if Ichigo did cross over with them, it would be within the realms of, yo, this is the Burn the Witch manga returning or the Burn the Witch anime returning, look, Ichigo is showing up, etc, etc. Because also while that series is still kind of ongoing, Kubo just at one point said, yo, I'll get back to it when I get back to it. Bleach has its own spin-off that is currently, you know, as well in the same realm of Burn the Witch, where it's kind of like it'll happen when it happens, with the No Breaths from Hell stuff with his kid and whatnot, Ichigo's son. So there's a lot of things happening with both different stories, or at the very least they're both on cliffhangers, so to speak. You know, they're supposed to continue, but again, I'm going to assume that crossover would either be within the realms of Burn the Witch, as far as it'll be a Burn the Witch project with Ichigo being involved, or if Kubo really decided he wanted to do something with combining both IPs, it would be like some massive Burn the Witch x Bleach or Bleach x Burn the Witch type of film crossover, which would be humongous. Personally, that would probably be the pick I would go for, because that way you can have a blend of both and it won't just be like Ichigo walking into London. You could have, you know, some of the captains from the Serite. You could have a lot of different aspects going on. And I guess timeline wise, I'm curious as to how that would transpire, or when that would transpire, simply because, you know, by the end of Bleach, of course there's a big time skip or whatnot. Would a crossover like that happen before the big time skip happens, in between that era, or would it be after the fact, like Ichigo was taking his son to London type of scenario? Like there's a lot of different elements that could go depending on which way Kubo decides to write this thing, as to when it happens, where it happens, how it happens, etc, etc. But ultimately, yeah, I would love to see it. But let's carry on. The Q&A was uploaded on the official website of Club Outside, but since it's barred behind registration and largely inaccessible to fans outside of Japan, several social media accounts shared the translation. After the 1,000-Year Blood War was over, Ichigo went to London to study English because of his fondness for English literature, especially William Shakespeare. However, his journey to London has always been up for fan discussion, since we don't know the details and only learned about it through Q&A. So this very well could take place within the realm of that, essentially after the Blood War, but before the big time skip. If Kubo decides to tell Ichigo's story, we might also see a crossover with his spin-off Burn the Witch, which is set in the same universe but in London instead of Japan. I mean, again, just quickly, I gotta imagine that Kubo would definitely go for it, because it would just kind of be like, hey, why are we going to London and not having any reference to Kubo's other pretty significant and awesome story, Burn the Witch? So yeah, there would be no reason to not include a big crossover between the characters. It's a short spin-off centering around two agents of Wingbind in Reverse London, a hidden branch of Soul Society where humans are unaware of dragons and Soul Reaper activities. However, anything else about the Ichigo spin-off is currently unknown, since the author doesn't specify when he plans to release it. And just keeping it real, this would be huge. This would be massive. Ultimately, I think this is something Kubo should definitely do, but at the same time, I personally am very much so fond of the way Kubo has been maneuvering. He kind of has everybody, whether you're a Burn the Witch fan, a Bleach fan, or both, highly anticipating whatever next project he decides to do. And since he's currently really much so laser focused in on completing the 1,000-Year Blood War alongside Studio Pierrot for the anime aspect, you know, he's been hard at work doing some of the storyboarding and just in general directing anime original stuff, which there's a lot to come for that final core. Ultimately, I'm sure whenever Kubo does get to this, he'll make sure that it's done correctly and everybody will be satisfied. And yeah, this is just very interesting though to note that outside outside of the no breaths from hell stuff, there is more Bleach to come. Kubo hasn't completely decided that, yo, no breaths from hell is it. I mean, I doubt that they would actually put this crossover thing within the no breaths from hell. There's just like very little time or very little reason to put that in there. So this will probably be separate from that as well. So either burn the witch world or a brand new story in general. Either way, we have new Bleach stuff to potentially look forward to whenever Kubo does get around to deciding, yo, I'm ready to tell that story. And shout outs to Kubo for giving more hope for the Bleach fandom. And while we're on the topic of Bleach, there is something also that I wanted to talk about that was very much so exciting for Bleach fans. Because in case you don't know, there was recently a Bleach game released for consoles not that far back. And ultimately, there has been a lot of murmurings regarding a new transformation that was revealed that will be included in the game that actually isn't supposed to be shown until the anime debuts, which has some people a little bit like, spoiler alert! But I mean, this form has been around for quite some time. You've probably seen it here and there. So yeah, let's just take a quick glimpse at it. But I'm warning you, it is a spoiler. Bleach dropped first look at Ichigo's final form ahead of anime debut. Ichigo has yet to show off many of his new abilities after training with the members of Squad Zero, as he has not been facing off against the Stern Ritter much. But that's going to change with the final episodes, as Ichigo and others will be getting into some highly anticipated fights. Ichigo is not the only one who gets a brand new transformation before it's all over, but Bleach Rebirth the Soul fans will be able to see his final form in action well before it comes to the anime release. Bleach Thousand Year Blood War is currently in the works on making its comeback for part 4 of its new anime series, and the franchise dropped the first look at Ichigo Kurosaki's final form before it makes its official debut in the anime. Bleach Thousand Year Blood War is now in production on its 4th and likely final batch of episodes, adapting the final arc of Tite Kubo's original manga series. This means that fans will finally get to see the final battles and transformations that they have been waiting for over a decade to see in action. This includes Ichigo's final transformation too. And based off that trailer, it looks phenomenal. This game looks gorgeous as it's been since it came out, and the fact that they did that's pretty freaking awesome, giving Bleach fans a treat, another incentive to get into that game. And at the same time, when it does come out in the anime, fans is gonna go even crazier. For people that necessarily aren't playing that game per se, yeah, it's gonna be big, it's gonna be huge, and regardless of what, it looks epic. Shout outs to Bleach, shout outs to Kubo. The Bleach IP has just really been delivering. Nothing else needs to be said. Okay, then next up we have something very exciting to talk about as well. My Hero Academia fans, we have been blessed with greatness in the form of, we recently were delivered a brand new trailer for the upcoming final core, final season of the My Hero Academia anime, not to be confused with the spin-off anime that is currently airing right now, the Vigilante series. This is for the finale, and ultimately this trailer blew everyone's expectations away between the art style, the animation, and in general, of course, if you read the original manga, you kind of already know, but if you didn't, the intensity and action that is going to be transpiring, because this trailer, whoever directed it, they made sure to showcase, yo, it is going to be extreme, it is going to be crazy. You see Deku going in, you see All Might, which for me personally, as a fan of the franchise, I can't really ask for much more. That is something that I've always loved, the two of them together, focusing in, working as a team to take out the entities that are Shigaraki, and All for One. All Might looking crazy epic with the suit, Deku looking crazy epic, them making sure that there's Sakuga animation. If you don't know what that is, essentially it makes it real fluid, where it looks like they're truly moving around, which takes a lot more work to make it look that way, a lot more frames, a lot more art, all of that stuff to really make it go, and it just looks absolutely phenomenal. And also it showcases the level of seriousness, because at the end of the day, yes, this is the final hoorah for the My Hero Academia main story, unless at some given point Horikoshi decided to revisit the story, or we get more movies, whatever the case may be, which I think more movies is still a big possibility. But regardless of what, with this being the final climactic battle, fighting against two of the biggest threats the series has had, Shigaraki and All for One, they are going all out. And considering the fact that there's only going to be probably 12 to 13 episodes based on how much content we have left, this is not going to be a 24. There's no way, unless they completely stretch with filler, which they could do that. I don't see that happening. It would be pointless at this point, because again, we're in the final stretch and whatnot. We're probably looking at about 12 to 13 more episodes. We have, of course, the date of October 2025, where it's going to all begin, this final run. So basically, by the end of 2025, we will have for sure My Hero Academia's full-on story and the anime adaptation wrapped up, and we will also get to see how all of this transpires, the final chapters, see if they're going to include some of the extra stuff from, I think recently they put out a book where there was like an extra chapter as well that even further cements and adds on to what Horikoshi already added on with that 431. There was another one that he put out recently in like a different spin-off book that demonstrated again more of the events after the end of My Hero. So we're gonna find out all of the questions that we've had. We're gonna get the answers by the end of this year, thankfully so, and it's going to be done in such beautiful, pristine quality. I can't stress enough how amazing, how epic, and how much they delivered with this final trailer for My Hero Academia season. I just hope that certain aspects that in the manga wasn't necessarily done to a lot of the fans' liking, because this final stretch in the manga, there were some fans that had their criticisms of pacing wise, mainly considering that we're probably going to go for a shorter run than any season or whatnot. I don't think there's going to be any even pacing issues for any of this, for that matter. I think that legitimately everything is set up so right that ultimately there's no choice other than to just make this damn near perfect, and it looks like Studio Bones is going to deliver regardless of what. My Hero Academia final season trailer looking great, and come October things is about to heat up one last time for My Hero Academia. Let's go plus ultra with it, you heard? Moving forward, Dragon Ball fans, so we recently had some pretty interesting reports regarding stuff to do with the artist of Dragon Ball Super, Toyotaro. Now we know that the Dragon Ball Super manga has been on hiatus for quite some time. Earlier this year we actually got the first piece of any sort of Dragon Ball Super manga in quite some time with the one-shot superhero story with Goten and Trunks and all of that stuff, which was really exciting to get. But for the most part, the main story, the main timeline has kind of been at a standstill for a while now with the Dragon Ball Super manga. And so a lot of fans have been wondering, yo, what's going on? What's going to happen? Of course, we had the Dragon Ball Daima anime, which seemingly isn't connected to the manga at the very least. Like, it's technically potentially canon in certain aspects, but oftentimes fans will look at it and be like, it also really could just exist in its own thing because of certain things that fans feel like, of course, it retcons with GT, Goku attaining that Super Saiyan 4 transformation that essentially when you get to GT he doesn't even know about. So there's a lot of different aspects that make you question things. But regarding Dragon Ball Super, the manga and the anime of course have been at a standstill, with the anime's last piece of things that we've got was the superhero film with Gohan and Piccolo, which was epic as can be. But ultimately people have been like, yo, so what's going on with the manga? And so recently we had reports regarding Toyotaro that apparently Dragon Ball Super manga artist Toyotaro, he talked to an editor who made his mark on manga history, Kazuhiko Torishima, about his first original manga project, and Kazuhiko Torishima reveals the powerful techniques he's honed throughout his career. So essentially there was reports coming in that Toyotaro was going to be at this upcoming expo in July, revealing that he's working on an original series, an original manga. So a lot of fans was like, oh my gosh, this is terrible, regarding the fact that that means if he is starting a brand new original manga that has nothing to do with Dragon Ball Super manga is going to be on hiatus for even further than what we could imagine, because again, if he is focusing in on something else, there's no way he could do that and put all of his focus into the Dragon Ball Super manga. So that was reports, and I'm kind of glad I waited a bit in order to get all of the information, because that would have been terrible and very disappointing to kind of report that, yo dog, it looks like Dragon Ball Super is completely not happening for a while. And that still sort of possibly could be the case, because there's a lot of different reports coming in. Because then we also got a report that came in the form of, well, for starters, we got a 10th anniversary special illustration by Toyotaro that was revealed, and it looks insanely good. It's Gohan with that classic pose that he had during the Cell games where he was, you know, doing the Kamehameha with one arm versus Cell, but he's in his beast form with Goku right behind him and Goku Ultra Instinct, and it just looks incredible. Like, I love when Toyotaro does this digital stuff. I know at the end of the day some folks might feel a certain way about, you know, digital versus traditional, and I love both, to be honest with you, but this just looks so great. But in the form of that, we got info that apparently a certain project will be revealed in V-Jump this coming month. So a lot of people are curious as to, okay, maybe the original manga thing was actually not necessarily misinformation, but not completely understood by what was reported, and maybe this original manga is the Dragon Ball Super story is coming back, or maybe he's going to have a one-shot, because that's also a possibility as well. It could be simple that while he's been waiting, Toyotaro hasn't just been sitting around, he's been working on some stuff, so maybe it could just be a simple one-shot story that, again, it doesn't have to be necessarily in the realm of Dragon Ball, but then Dragon Ball will resume following. So that's a possibility as well. But regardless of what, it seems to be the case that maybe Dragon Ball, whether it be Super or a new Dragon Ball story in general, could be happening here soon if we're going to be getting info on a certain project. And V Jump, there's also the possibility that it could be something film wise. Don't, you know, completely hold your breath on that one. That's just potential that maybe they're going to have info on a new project regarding film or animation. I doubt it'll be Daima 2 news because Daima 1 is like just now hitting Toonami. You know, they're still having a run of that, but ultimately there's a lot of different reports, and until July we won't know for sure whether or not the Dragon Ball Super manga is going to be put on the side while Toyotaro works on something new, or it's going to be returning. But something is definitely happening, we could say that for sure. Toyotaro is going to be doing some type of work. It just isn't very clear right now if it'll be Dragon Ball or something original. Regardless of what, very much so look forward within the next couple weeks, early July. I believe the expo that he's going to be speaking at is like July 5th. Around that point, we will know for sure if the Dragon Ball story is returning, or if Toyotaro is going to be doing an original work, or there's something even more grandiose that we haven't talked about yet that is going to be happening. And I mean, considering the fact that there's plenty of fans that are very much so sitting around, waiting around like, yo dog, what happened with Black Frieza? We got all of this epicness, that last volume cover that had all of the characters looking very much so epic. Like, we want to get back to that, but only time will tell. Either way, Toyotaro has been working. We can say that for sure. Okay, and lastly, we have a couple of stories that we're going to call these Fornev Choices, where essentially it's just a few stories that we'll briefly touch up on that I thought were kind of interesting or exciting for the future of anime and manga, or just in general, stories that are of interest to me. For starters, Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba's Infinity Castle arc first film will be revealing a new trailer June 28th, because the film is set to be released July 18, 2025. Of course, that's in Japan. Probably, I'm assuming, a few months out after that, we'll be getting it over here in the West. And yeah, considering this is the first of 3 to wrap up the Demon Slayer anime, I'm looking forward to it. I'm very much so excited. This will be probably one of the times, if you've been dodging going to the theaters for Demon Slayer because of those 2 movie tour thingies where they packed a couple of episodes together, you could kind of put that to the back of your mind and say no, because this is actually going to be closer to the realm of, again, what happened with like Mugen Train, where it's a true film based off, of course, the arcs of the manga, which the final arc that will be split into 3 different films. And yeah, I mean, personally, I don't really need, and I don't think for the most part any Demon Slayer fans potentially necessarily need any more trailers. Like, we just know, yo, Demon Slayer, it's gonna look great, it's gonna look awesome, it's gonna be amazing. And if you're a fan of it, of course you're gonna go see it to see how it all plays out and ends. Even if you're not, you're probably at the very least impressed with the visuals, and you might go with some people to check it out. So yeah, Demon Slayer film is still happening and very much so on its way here soon. Then something that caught my interest in particular, because we recently spoke about what was happening with Weekly Shonen Jump and how, you know, the numbers is fluctuating and a lot of different series is coming and going, and a lot of people was just like in limbo on like, okay, what's happening with Shonen Jump? Because clearly, since the departure of series like Black Clover going to another publication with the Jump Giga switch, and then My Hero Academia ending, and of course Jujutsu Kaisen ending, a lot of people are like, yo, where does Jump go from here? Because the biggest Goliath they have is One Piece, but outside of that, it's not as grandiose in terms of the popularity, quote unquote, which isn't the determining factor for everything, but it does kind of dictate what's going to happen in the future of the magazine and series and whatnot. And we got recently something that I found to be fascinating, is the latest sales for the first week of Oricon releases of Jump manga. And while some of the series aren't performing the greatest, one of the things to note is the top 2 from the latest release was Sakamoto Days and Ichi the Witch, with Sakamoto Days still doing very well, almost 70k first week, but in particular Ichi the Witch being a more newer title to the magazine. It's very interesting to note that it almost did 50,000 in its first week, which to me personally is like, okay, this is solidifying now. We already have Kagurabachi as a staple that more than likely is going to be one of the next big ones from Weekly Shonen Jump. It's doing very well. It's over 2 million sales with a handful or so of volumes and whatnot. When we last spoke, one of the things that I did say was, yo, it's gonna be Kagurabachi in the next generation of Shonen Jump, whether you love it, hate it, whatever the case may be. It's just facts that Kagurabachi has been waving the flag of it's up next. But outside of Kagurabachi, there wasn't any clear indicator of, okay, well, what else is going to be there alongside to really kind of build up, not necessarily, again, a big three per se, but just that sort of level of, I don't know if you'd call it friendly rivalry or just in general competition to really showcase like, yo, this next generation of Jump, it's coming and it's going to be big and strong. And it seems to be the case that Ichi the Witch is making its stance that, no, dog, it's not only Kagurabachi, Ichi the Witch, 50,000, and I believe already, what, with 2 volumes, it's doing very well with over 300. This is probably more than likely a solidification of, it'll be Kagurabachi, Ichi the Witch, and whatever comes after as well of the big dogs for the next generation, because no other series has had this level. Again, Sakamoto Days is 22 volumes in. This is like, what, volume 3 or 4 of Ichi the Witch, and it's already doing 50k first week, which with a little more elevation is going to even further cement it. So yeah, all said and done, Kagurabachi and it looks like Ichi the Witch are 2 of the next contenders for Jump's flagship titles. And I'm very excited to say that because, again, things were looking a little rocky. Where do we go from here with Weekly Shonen Jump? What's happening? And now we're starting to get some series that are really taking it there and showcasing like, yo, we're here and we're gonna rock out in a major way with Shonen Jump. So salute to Ichi the Witch. Looking forward to seeing where things go from here. And regardless of what, Shonen Jump is starting to showcase. If you had doubts, clear them out your mind. That's all I have for this one. I'm Tim. As always, people, have an awesome day. Subscribe and hit that bell to get more videos. Thank you so much. Peace in.
I made my mistakes, but it's time to